Welcome to our Simple Healthy Life podcast, where our goal is to have real, insightful conversations on topics that we find interesting. And today, we have our good friend, Anthony McCauley. One of the reasons we wanted to have Anthony on is because, as you know, we really like to talk to people that find a passion, figured out something they're passionate about, and are living that passion. And Anthony is one of those people. We'll let him talk about it, but I would introduce him as chef, and I think I would have introduced him as triathlete, but now I can call him Iron Man.
Yes.
Welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today, and I appreciate you having me on the show. So I guess I'll give a little recap of myself and my past and kind of where I'm at today. So, currently I am an Ironman and a triathlete, and that's been something I've been passionate and been into for about 4 years now. Prior to that, I was a marathon runner. Rewind 6 years ago, I was not athletic at all. So this was a newfound passion for me, I'd say right around 2019. A lot of people say it sounds cliche, and maybe it does, but it's not really cliche to me. In 2019, my father got ill, and I was kind of looking for a way to kind of escape. So I thought I'd run. I had never run before, and I think I ran around my neighborhood a couple times and didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but it was a great mental escape for me to kind of process where I was at in my life, and almost also a wake-up call that maybe I should start taking better care of myself.
How old were you then?
I was 39 then.
You're 39 and you had never run before.
Correct.
And now you're
45.
45 and you're an Ironman.
Yeah, I've done over 10 full marathons, full Ironman. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and maybe dozens of other races in between.
So triathlete versus Ironman? Maybe for myself, what is the difference there?
So it's really the distance. So triathlon is the actual sport, and then there's different distances. Almost you can compare it to running races. So you have with running you have a 5K, 10K, half marathon, right? So it's pretty much the same with triathlon. With triathlon, you're going to have a sprint distance, which will be a short distance. Then you have an Olympic. Then you'll have a half Ironman, or a 70.3. And then the full distance triathlon is 140.6 miles, and that's considered an Ironman.
Wow.
How does that break down?
So that breakdown, great question. So that's a 2.4-mile swim, followed by a 112-mile bike ride, and then finish with a full marathon.
No breaks?
No breaks.
How long does it take?
For the average athlete, which I consider myself, about 13 hours.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
Straight through.
Straight through.
That is
Yeah.
incredible.
So I want to talk about this more, but I'd like to talk a little bit more first to kind of understand, what were you like before this happened? You said you weren't an athlete, but you must have had some drive and some dedication towards something.
I did. I mean, I was always a pretty career-driven person. I'm a trained chef. I went to culinary school to be a chef, and I think working in the restaurant industry, working in kitchens, kind of teaches you a lot of adversity and mental toughness. So I'm assuming I already had that built into my mental capacity before I transitioned into this new adventure of running and getting healthy and things like that.
So your dad gets sick.
Yep.
And then you started the running. Was it intentional to get healthy for you, or to change your lifestyle? What was that all about?
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned at first, it was kind of a mental escape. And then during some self-discovery during that time, I think my father being ill kind of woke me up a little bit, and I said to myself, I should probably start taking better care of myself. And I think like some others, I have a bit of addictive personality, so I kind of focus on something and I go all in. So I really went all in on that journey. And I had some bumps in the way, some ups and downs, and kind of figuring it out, what was too much, what was not enough, and try to find that balance throughout the journey. And I think you still battle that, but it was a lot of self-discovery to become healthy and just kind of continue that journey.
Wow. Well, so by the time this actual podcast comes out, maybe the one previous to it or two previous to it, we were talking about transformative moments, Kairos moments. And, I can't help but think about, you're in this place where there's a lot of change, and, dad is sick, and you're wondering, how do I kind of cope with this? And, there's some essence of change boiling up. Was there a specific moment? Like, do you remember this moment of like, I'm going to go for a run just and see what happens? And then after the run, was it like, wow, that was pretty good. Like, maybe I just keep doing more of this. So I'm curious about that. If it all boiled into like one transformative moment, and maybe was there some good thoughts there, some good thoughts on change that you had for yourself as you reflected?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first moment was, just, my father was home for the last 3 weeks before he passed, and I was there pretty much every day. So at first, the first transformative moment was just the light to get out and just, be free for a while and just kind of release some of all the emotions that I'm kind of feeling. And then from that, I think I started to feel, maybe that after running for a bit, I think I felt some of that dopamine that a lot of people feel, almost like that runner's type high. And I think that's where my addictive personality kind of kicked in, and I really started to enjoy that. So from there, I set goals. I'd set a goal from my house to at one point was 2.5 miles. So that was my first goal. And then after that goal, there was a local 5-mile race in town. So I signed up for that race. And then, I transformed. This is where the drive came in. I think 3 months later, I ran my first half marathon in New Bedford. And then 5 months later, I ran my first full marathon in Philadelphia. So within 1 year running, I went from couch to full marathon.
Wow.
That's incredible.
And then you still decided somehow, and this is, for me, this is an interesting topic because I'm not a great swimmer. What happened there? Like, so how do you go from just running to being a biker and a swimmer and a runner?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. So the transition was I was running for a long time, and a couple people had come up to me that I'd met through the community. I'd start talking about triathlon and cycling, and I didn't really know anything about it, and I really didn't have much interest for it at the time. So I hadn't really thought too much about it, but I was kind of interested in cycling. So a buddy of mine had a road bike that he had never used. It was just like a lot of people have, just kind of sitting around. He had the shoes and everything. And I had met up with another person through the industry that I knew that was a cyclist. And we started cycling. I'm like, man, I really like this. So I think actually Scott Fisher and some other people were like, oh, man, you should try triathlon. So it's funny. You're going to laugh. I preface all this by saying I have quite an addictive personality, right? So I think my wife was around when Scott mentioned that, and I could see her eyes roll because she's like, all right, now this is going to be the next thing that he's going to be totally zoned in on. So, we went I cycled for a couple months, and I had swam in high school. So I was on the swim team in high school. So the swimming just kind of, I knew I could jump into that. So I started saying, all right, let's do a triathlon. So what I did was I skipped sprint, I skipped Olympic, and my first triathlon was the Patriot Half Ironman in Lakeville.
Wow.
That was my first triathlon.
Right for a half.
I went right for a half, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how'd it go?
Great. It was amazing. I think I finished in like 6 hours and 8 minutes. I had a great experience, and it was pretty amazing, and that from that point I was hooked. That was it. Triathlon was it for me.
Wow.
Do you remember like some of those first, like either like the half marathons and the half iron? Do you remember moments in that in the middle of that where you're like, why am I doing this?
Absolutely. So when I ran my first marathon, that was in Philadelphia, right? It was 38 degrees and it was raining.
Oh.
It was miserable.
Wow.
And my wife doesn't come to many of my races, but this was a big deal. So she came to this race, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I was cruising along. I didn't really know much about running. I wasn't fueling or any of that. I think I had a water bottle in my hand. So I hit mile 18, and man, they say you hit this wall where you just crash. I started to hit that wall. And right around mile 18 on the Philadelphia Marathon, the rest of the race is kind of like an out and back, so spectators can see you 2 or 3 times. So the first time I'm smiling, and then I think I got to like mile 21, and I'm like, oh man, that moment hit. I'm like, I'm in trouble right now. I was cold, I was shivering. So I come back, I kind of faked it till I made it to see her again. And then I think I was at mile 23, and I'm literally texting her like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I can finish.
During the race?
Yeah, during
Wow.
the race. But I finished, and it's so funny. It was amazing when I finished. And the funniest thing, you're going to laugh when you hear this. So the one thing I remember about finishing the Philadelphia Marathon, it was cold and rainy, And right when you cross the finish line, they gave you hot cups of chicken broth. And it was the most amazing thing I ever put in my mouth at that time. My mouth is watering now because it was just that time. That was exactly what I needed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
So yeah, what were the and we're always curious about like the thoughts, right? Because we both of us, I mean, even on the way to these podcasts, we're like on the phone talking about just like thoughts that we have, and so yeah, you have these thoughts of like, ooh, this is really tough. Like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, what was the thought work that like brought you past that? Like, what drove you there? Like, you could have just quit, and no one's banking on you to finish that. I mean, only yourself, really.
Right.
How do you cross that bridge? Would you say, well, just one more step, or I'll just get to the end, or I really want to do this? Like, what in that moment, what was it for you?
Yeah, I think in that moment, I think for me, it's for me, it's I don't want to disappoint myself, or I guess disappoint myself is the way I'll put it, because you put all the hard work in, you put the training in, for one, and then two, any endurance racing, it's a dual commitment. My wife might not be doing the training, but she's going through me not being around, or me, being really strict with my eating, me not being as social at certain times because I have an 18-mile training run the next day. So all those thoughts start to go through my head, and it's like, not finishing is not an option, and that was with marathon. And then triathlon, Ironman, you feel all the feelings. Yeah. You feel them all. So, you're at the start line, and, Arizona was a perfect example. The water was 60 degrees.
Wow.
So you're having anxiety because you need to jump in that. It's a start line. You're there. You're jumping in. So you feel that. You feel the adrenaline for that. Then you get through the swim. You're like, all right, I'm good. The bike, you can feel a lot of different things because that's the longest part of the race. But for the most part, you're still pretty good unless something bad happens. And then the run is where the real mental challenge comes in. That's when you feel all the feelings. That's when the mental games really come in. It's like, maybe this is going to be my last one. Why am I doing this? Why did I sign up for this? And then you cross that finish line, and it's something you can't explain. It really is. The feeling when you cross something like that, where you just completed, like I said, it's not just the race. Right. It's everything leading up to the race. It's the 6 to 8 months of training. It's the sacrifices you made with your friends and family. And then you accomplish that accomplishment in that feat, and the feeling it's almost euphoric.
I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, what percentage of people get to be an Ironman?
Yeah.
I can't imagine. It's a very small percentage of people.
Yeah, very small percentage. But it teaches you the training and the race just really teaches you a lot about yourself as a person. Really does. Like you learn. You self-check yourself. You learn a lot about yourself through the whole process. It's definitely a process.
Wow. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you today is, like, I mean, you physically look different than I knew you before. Mm-hmm. Your body's transformed. You're clearly mentally have transformed. So I do want to talk kind of like some advice, some thoughts around like what it means to transform and change from who you were into who you are, and maybe there's another transformation coming. I mean, we talk about being transformative quite a bit and transforming, but before we do that, I want to kind of not maybe close the book on this, but I'd love to we have you here. Give us some advice on someone that wants to become an Ironman. You seem like the best person that we could ask as someone who literally started from zero. So if there's anybody out there that's already running 5Ks or something, you're farther ahead, but give us some advice from starting, and then give us some advice to finish.
Sure, absolutely. So for me, from starting, it was literally signing up for that race. That's the first commitment. You've kind of made that commitment. You have to do that, and then make sure one thing that I've learned: make sure you have that commitment from your family and whoever your significant other or partner is, because if you don't, it's going to make it really hard to achieve those goals, because it's really a full round of support to be able to do that. And then within that, it's literally just commitment to the training. Make sure you have training or a training plan that is attainable. A lot of people will get into or have the idea that they want to do an Ironman, and they might look up this amazing training plan online that someone else did, but it doesn't fit their lifestyle. So then they can't do it. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't work. And they end up, giving up, and they can't believe that they can do that. But you don't have to train like everyone else does. Everyone has different goals when they do an Ironman. Some people might have a goal just to finish the race. Some people have time goals, and my advice that I can give you when you're doing your first Ironman, don't have any time goals. Don't have any time goals. It's really going to play a mental game if you have a tough day out there, because there's so many factors that can happen within the race. And then, I think when we talk about, transformations, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is that, there's no instant gratification in anything. And I think, society looks for a lot of quick, instant gratification. I mean, I'm still going through self-discovery and transformation, and it's been 6 years.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly have made pretty quick changes, and even when it's done that quickly, I mean, such a stark difference. And I would be a little curious as to like what life was like before. You were talking kind of like stages of life, kind of deal. But we'll circle back to this. But when someone makes that kind of quick change, you feel that like sense of self from like 35 years old, and now you said you're 45, right?
Yeah.
So you know what that person's like, and now you know what this person's like, and it must be kind of tough to see that at times, to see like, oh yeah, I've been changing, I've changed. I mean, that's incredible. A couple Ironman, plenty of races. I mean, to go from 0 to that in just 6 years is truly remarkable.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It just, like I said, there's a lot of self-discovery within that, and it wasn't all successes, and I think that's another thing you have to realize. I'm going to give you a really, really honest example of some of my path within the past 6 years. We talked about an addictive personality, and we talked about how I got into running. Right around that time when I decided I want to be healthy, I didn't really know what healthy was. I wasn't educated about it at the time. I had also started getting into CrossFit, and then I decided that I needed to count, macros and calories, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I think the first thing I did is I cut out carbs, which was probably the worst thing I could have done, right?
Yeah.
So I got in a bad space because I got so addicted to counting my food and my calories that it was unhealthy. So I'll give you an example. So prior to my journey, I probably weighed about 220 pounds, 230 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark, right? I hovered right around there.
How tall are you?
6'2".
Okay.
Wow.
So at my lowest point of this journey, I would say mentally and physically, I was down to almost 165 pounds.
Wow. Then that was running and not eating properly.
Correct. Running, not eating properly, being very, very addicted. I think the running and the eating became first priority over everything. So I kind of had to self-check myself, my wife, friends. A lot of people had to self-check me. I didn't believe it at first. I told them they were wrong. I'm fine. I'm good. I wasn't good. I was not good at all. So, we kind of learn. We kind of adjust some things, make some changes. So I did make changes to that, but I did not make changes to the priority of training and races. That was still kind of higher than it should have been. I still didn't have the balance, right? So that caused, like I said before, when I give you a part of advice, make sure you have the full rounded support, because if you don't, you don't enjoy the reward as much, if you can understand that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that particular topic resonates with me, obviously, because I work with people who have like these disordered eating habits. And, when eating healthy becomes a hobby, it can lead down a dangerous path. And we try to do, we're always trying to do better with food, right? Like better, whatever that means. It doesn't mean much. And then, finding out, maybe years later for some people that better is balance, better is having some flexibility, and better is self-care and intentionality with food. Someone the other day like said it so beautifully, and it resonated too with me, that it might be a healthful choice to choose a pizza one night for you, right? As long as it's intentional, right? And so, I try to like discuss that with people, just making sure that when we make food choices, it's intentional. There's a reason for it. It's not just like, well, I need to be better. I need to eat more healthily than what I did yesterday. That's not how food works. And so, yeah, for you to be at, that kind of weight, training, all that, you certainly were undernourished and certainly feeling the mental impacts of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's interesting. I don't think we don't get to talk to many people that were going down in weight so much that their circle had to talk to them. Many people put on, hey, Mike, you put on 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Just letting you know, right? One of those. But so that must have been an interesting thought, right? To say because in some place in the middle, you kind of probably did hit the sweet spot, right? Like you weren't 230 anymore. Maybe you're 200 and you're like, and then you just keep going and keep going and keep going. So yeah, we don't really look at that as a society for the most part to say yeah, there's both ends of this spectrum.
And it's true, and it's interesting that you say that, because during those times, there were times that I had said to my wife, I feel the same right now as someone that's overweight.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in denial, just like someone that's overweight. It was the same exact thing, but just on the other spectrum. So, I kind of moved through that. I started to find some balance. And then 3 or 4 years ago, I said, I think I need to share this with other people and kind of maybe form some type of support group to help other people. So I formed a Facebook group called, Active and Healthy Living. And, it was like 30 people at first, and it literally was that. We would post food, we would post recipes, we'd talk about challenges, and kind of, try to build a support system and share stories so we could kind of help each other out through those challenges.
Wow.
So what's that up to now? I happen to know the answer.
Yeah, it's over 900 members now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That tells me, for all of you potential influencers out there, you just followed your passion. You found something you're passionate about, and you wanted to share it, and your reasons, your intention were positive. And what's the name of the Facebook group for people that want to join?
Active and Healthy Vibes.
Perfect.
Nice.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Good for you. Yeah, and that's where it starts. You recognizing that, and I love that advice. That the support network is really important, and perhaps one of the most important things that someone can do, having the supportive people in their lives, but then utilizing that. It is hard for a lot of us. I mean, especially as we guys, right? It's hard for us to say, hey, I need some directions.
A little support here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you had a physical transformation that was disguised. You had a mental transformation that was disguised as a physical transformation. And when we think about transformative moments, we talked about Kairos. When we think about transforming as a person, a lot of times we do think about that physical transformation, but this was more of a mental transformation for you, and a positive one, right? But more of a mental transformation into a new person, into a new journey. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about some of your theories and philosophies on what it takes to transform, to grow and develop? I mean, you're on, I know I say it all the time, I'm on the 5th version of me.
Yeah.
But so many of us are afraid to let go of version 4 to move into version 5, and you're someone that's living it right now. So can you give us any advice on that?
Yep. Yeah, great. Let me give a little bit of background so people understand where I'm at first. So I'm fairly young at 45 years old, but I've already been through multiple stages of life just because my wife and I started our family very young. So, we started our family at 19 years old.
Wow.
So we went through those phases, the phase where you have the young children, you don't really have time, to the phase where you have teenage children, you're dealing with that. And now we're getting ready to enter our phase of, our children being fully grown. My oldest is a senior in high school. He's going to be going off to college. My other 2 are adults. And
your youngest is a senior in high school.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my youngest. Yeah, thank you. My youngest is a senior in high school. He's actually early committed to Mass Maritime. He'll be going to Mass Maritime in the fall.
Awesome. Nice.
Yeah,
Congrats.
Yep. So pretty excited about that. So this phase in my life has probably been the scariest of them all, because this one is really just me discovering who I am. I didn't really have to discover who I was in those previous phases because I was so busy with the family phase and giving time to the family and busy with the children. So being engulfed in that, you don't really get to look at yourself. So I say about a year and a half ago is when I really started looking at myself in a different way. And it was confusing at first. I want to say confusing because I think a lot of people could relate when you say confusing, because you might be feeling different about yourself and you're not sure why, and you're not sure where this is going. So, a lot of the passions I still have, but I'm finding that I'm finding new passions and I'm finding new paths, and it's kind of scary to go down those paths because I'm not sure where it's going to lead. But you guys talked on your last podcast about courage, and that really speaks to me a lot in this self-discovery phase, because I really need a lot of courage to overcome the fear to follow wherever this path is going right now. I'm heavily into health. I'm really been getting into longevity, just because I want to be healthy as long as I can, right? And I really want to help people. So I have my career that I love, but then I also have this new discovery that I also love that's a passion. So I'm just trying to follow this path to see where it's going to bring me. And that can be scary.
Yeah. What are those fears? Like, could you describe them if you feel comfortable?
Yeah. So I mean, the fear is, what if this new person you're becoming isn't aligned with everyone else that's in your life? For instance, maybe you have a circle of friends that, they knew we'll say the old Anthony, but the new Anthony is different than the old Anthony, and maybe that doesn't align with things you have in common with the people that were in your life in the past. I mean, your true friends and your family will always be there, but you might lose some people along these phases of life and this self-discovery, but you're going to find new people that can be amazing, that actually are on the same path or similar paths that you're on.
Have you already experienced some of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And that is hard. I think it's very natural. I mean, at least as far as, you say fifth version of yourself. I'm sure I'm up somewhere. I got many versions too. And yeah, through each stage, it's like these, those people that we once loved and still do love and still appreciate. Yeah, they do kind of like naturally phase out. And there's something beautiful about that. Something beautiful about making new connections and having these other people. But everyone has their, I suppose, their impact on us, and they're with us in some way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's so funny when you're young, right? You think that, especially, you think that these are going to be my people, right? I
Right.
found my people.
I found my people.
And these are
You
my
hear
people,
that all the time.
right? And for me, maybe, my people were drinking every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because that was fun, right? No, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But then as you kind of mature and grow and be like, maybe that's not the best thing for me to do every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then you start to find these new people, and those people, they probably found their own way out of that same
Right.
thing onto their new people. And then I don't know how old you are when you eventually realize, okay, these are the people for now. But doesn't lose any luster, right? They don't lose any meaning in your life. When you're there with them, it's still just as meaningful as the first people that you thought were going to be your people.
Because those were the people in that phase, and they fit that at that time.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing if they don't fit your next phase. You're still going to have relationships with some of those people. Some you may not, and that's okay. And then this is a great example, and I actually love this, and this is actually towards you, MJ, because we knew each other in another phase, and we were never really like close friends. We kind of knew each other, and we've reconnected just recently, and a lot of our discoveries are kind of in similar paths, and I find that pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That actually, I didn't really think of it that way, but yeah, we ended up finding that we're both interested in the same stuff that maybe we were always a little bit interested in before, but now we're really into it. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So others could have people like that in their lives as well. You just don't know.
Yeah. No, that's it. It's great. I think when you kind of like articulate some of those fears, it helps people feel that they're not alone, right? All these struggles that we have are often shared. Do you ever fear like you fear that you're faking something? Because I hear that a lot. Like, that's just not me. You know, this new thing is just not me. And that's like one reason why people say, well, you know, I'm not necessarily scared to change, but that's just not me. Running, that's just not me. Any other thing, that's just not me. And I think that's a bit of a cover.
Hmm. Or almost like an imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Very similar to that. And sometimes I definitely feel this more often than not. Sometimes I feel like this new self-discovery of me and kind of the transformation I'm going through, some people don't read it as authentic. They might think it's not authentic, and I'm just,
Now, let me ask you,
Yeah.
because I love this topic. It's something that I'm very, very interested in. The people that you feel as though don't read it as authentic, are those the people that knew version 6 of Anthony, or are those the people that you meet now?
that new.
Yeah. So the people that you meet now, there's no way they don't see this as authentic. I mean, let's face it, you look the part, right? You're 6'2",
85 pounds.
85
Yeah.
pounds, right? Long, lean, run marathons, do Ironmans. Like, you're interested. Every time I've talked to you in the past couple years, it's been about health, wellness, fitness. So I don't see any way that you don't read authentic. But the people that knew you before, is there an opportunity for there to be a little bit of jealousy that you did transform, that you did change?
And they didn't cross those fears
Or
to
haven't
do the
yet.
same, or haven't yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting, and that very well could be.
I think that we all inherently recognize when somebody has transformed that there's fear involved, that they needed to be courageous to do it. And I think that we all inherently feel like maybe there was some catalyst that we don't have. Like, I didn't change because I didn't have that catalyst. Your dad got sick. You had a catalyst, right? I think it's just a way to protect ourselves, to say, like, I could do that if I wanted to, right? One of those type of things. Like, I think that's there. I do. I don't think it's like inherently bad or good. I just think it's there. And maybe I'm just giving everybody how I feel, but I think there's something there.
I agree. I think that, staying the same is easy. Staying the same is easy. You don't have to think about it. You already know the routine. You already know the lifestyle. So why change it? I think that's the mentality a good amount of people have, rather than, follow whatever is sitting in the back of their head and see what that is, and kind of discover what that is sitting back there, because it could be something amazing, instead of just keeping it in the back of your head there and closed off.
Right.
Well said.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Yeah, and I definitely, I've sensed that through my life too, and that like idea of like imposter syndrome, and yeah, I guess that's fear of the people close to us thinking that we're kind of faking something too, and when we're not adequate enough to be able to make the changes. But everyone's special, unique. That's the thing that comes through a lot of the time, and so. You might be in your Ironman phase right now, but who knows? Maybe you'll, be a musician, later on in life. You never know, and you have that capacity. And I think we're so stuck on labels sometimes. And I use that musician example frequently because I think it's a very powerful one. Someone picks up guitar, they want to learn guitar, and they might feel like a little bit of an imposter. But nonetheless, if they play a little bit of guitar, they are a musician. And, people have such a difficult time saying that, right? The person who plays a couple of chords almost never describes themselves as a musician. Like, I dabble a little bit. We're so scared to like take on that role or that identity or that label. But, you look past that kind of stuff and just recognize, you're just doing your thing, and there's reasons why you do the things that you do, and it's perfect. It truly is. And if someone doesn't really want to like foyer and change and go into all these different things, and that's good for them, right? And you don't have any animosity towards past friends and stuff who haven't changed.
No, the reward is to see the people that kind of look up to you, and then they do decide they do want to make that change, and then you see them start to make that change, and that's really where the rewarding feeling comes in.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm just reminded of all the people I talk to that are like, because you said something about how you're almost, getting to this empty nest phase. And like, I imagine in getting to know your kids, I know this to be true. Like, you put so much effort and work into their lives, and you kind of back burner your own self. And Anthony the dad, Anthony the family man, is still Anthony the dad and Anthony the family man. But when you now have this time to look back and say, okay, what now? What next? I think a lot of people are dealing with that, especially. I'm 2 years younger than you, so people my age are dealing with that. People at all ages are dealing with that.
Absolutely.
And what would you say? Give someone that's dealing with that feeling like, all right, I know it's coming. I know the kids are about to move on to the next phase. I know I'm about to have some more free time. Who do I want to be? What would you say for someone like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that
someone that's not interested in running.
I completely understood.
Just get out there and run.
It's there must be some type of hobby or something that you liked before you were in those phases where you didn't have time for yourself, right? Maybe it was photography. Maybe it's volunteering somewhere. Whatever that may be, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't have time for that," or "That sounds silly to me." Why? Why does it sound silly? If you used to love photography, you don't have time for it now, pick up a camera. Find a group. I always say that, it's easy. Things are easier in groups, right? Mm-hmm. If you can find others with like interests, it makes it a lot easier. And I think that's why, a great example is, group classes at gyms and fitness centers. People are, so I just recently started a strength training session about 3 months ago. And prior to that, I hadn't really been in a gym for a long time. And I remember a few months ago when I first walked into the gym by myself to do a set of weight training, I was intimidated. I was intimidated. Yeah. It was very intimidating to me because I didn't feel in my own. Now, put my running shoes on and put me on a road and I'm good. But you can apply that to all phases of life because everyone feels that way. But then if you walk into a group class with a friend, you get through the class and it's positive and you feel good about it and you have the camaraderie, the support. We talked about the support, right? So it's finding that support to be able to embrace that hobby or whatever that self-discovery might be.
Yeah, it's not talked about enough, the groups and supportive atmospheres. And I'm glad that it's come up. Like even like mentors, right? Like these are really powerful, tidbits of advice that I think people often overlook. And and it's funny that you share, like you went into the gym and you kind of felt a little out of place. I experienced that too. At one point in my life, I was training, in the gym almost every day, certified fitness trainer, dietitian, and I go to Planet Fitness maybe like, I don't know, this was maybe like 6-7 years ago, and I had taken a good break off, and I'm in there and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like reading the machines, and it's like, this is someone from like, it wasn't even that long of a period of time off, but I still felt super uncomfortable, right? But, I guess that's life. I guess that's the human condition. What I find interesting about you in particular is because you're not like running for money, and you've made this change and it's like kind of health oriented, kind of passion driven, just there's something there that you enjoy. But I think a lot of people are money and finance oriented. They're fame oriented. In fact, they say that they did some studies on millennials, and they found that there's somewhere in the ballpark of 80% of millennials rank their highest aspiration as both riches and fame. It's like, okay, so then everything that they do is dominated by that perspective. Well, why am I going to go do an Ironman? No one's going to pay me to do that. No one's going to pay me to go and take some photos, in your example. And so what would be your advice to that as people are dominated by the kind of financial landscape, I suppose? What drives you beyond that? Because clearly, I don't think you're getting paid for these things.
No, I'm not getting paid. Believe me, I think my wife definitely wishes that I was all the time I put into it. But I think that's a great topic. And what I would have to say about that is, I think we've all, heard similar stories about this. Is that, those financial and substantial wins or it's simple gratification, it's short gratification, right? That's not real gratification. I don't feel like it's real gratification. I think when you set a goal like running even a 5K and you've never ran before, that gratification and that feeling is going to far surpass any financial gratification or a new car or a new toy or anything you might buy. They always say, it's great when you buy a new car, but 6 months later it's just another car.
All right.
So I think that's for me, it's the like we talked about, it's setting that goal, being able to work towards that goal, making it to race day. I mean, the gratification is making it to the start line, right? That's the first gratification. You made it to that start line. And then you cross that start line, and then you finish that race. That's where the real reward is. It's like I said, it's everything up to the race. The race is like the icing on the cake. It's another cliche term, but it's so true if you think about it.
So I'd like to, I know we're kind of running up against it here, but I'd love to talk. The thing that I keep thinking about, right, is this training process. You're running 26 miles. So let's say you're running 18, right? That takes you, you said how fast do you run a mile? How fast do you run your marathon pace?
My marathon pace is about 7:15.
Jeez.
Yeah. I knew that, but I wanted him to say it. So you're on the bike for how many hours a day when you're training?
Full Ironman training, your last couple rides, it's probably 5 to 6 hour rides, maybe a 7 hour ride.
So 5, 6, 7 hours.
Yep.
Then you're going to run for 7:18 times 18, whatever that is, 3 hours, 2 hours. And before that, you were in the pool swimming, right, or in the lake swimming.
Right.
So what does that look like from a positive mental self-talk perspective and a visualization perspective? What are some things that you did to keep you going during those periods? Like I know, sorry to cut you off, but like in a perfect world, right, we're like, I'm swimming, I'm happy.
Yep.
I'm running, I'm happy. I'm biking, I'm happy. But that's just not the way the real world is, right? Like,
No.
So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like from a mental perspective?
Yeah, the pool is probably the best one to talk about because it's the most mundane. So imagine doing 120 laps in a pool and what that looks like. And for me, I think when you start to go through this process, first of all, it's a small buildup, right? So you're building up in chunks, So you're going to swim for 20 minutes in the pool when you first start. And then you're going to be up to an hour and a half in the pool when you finish. But during that time, it's really just the mental training. It's kind of, you're not just improving yourself physically, but you're improving your mental capacity as well. So it's being able to be in that pool and understand that there's a goal at the end, and you have to finish that training because you want to finish that training because you're working towards getting to that start line at the Ironman. So for me, some people train with music, some people don't. I don't dislike one or the other. For me, I do not train with anything. Wow. I just use that time to unplug and self-reflect. So when I'm having those long training sessions, that's when I kind of think about things, whatever the topic might be, whatever's going on in my life at that time, and I kind of just have a lot of self-reflection. It's almost like meditation for me at that point. But I know it's not that for everyone. So, you want to find whatever that thing is that can check you out for that certain amount of time to get through those longer training sessions.
What about some visualization? Any visualization tips for anybody?
Visualization tips? For me, it's just it's visualizing, seeing yourself race day. That's what it is. That's 100% what it is for me. You start to do these races, and you remember that I spoke about that feeling when you're about to get in the water. That it's anxiety, but it's good anxiety. I mean, it's adrenaline, it's anxiety. So if you can visualize that and remember that's what you're working towards, that can definitely help keep you focused.
I love that. Good anxiety, right? You don't often hear that, but it's true, right? And we've talked about that, like the high school athlete example where, they're going to feel the same feeling pre-football game as they would pre-test. And the football game is like, I'm so pumped up, I got I'm amped. And then the pre, classroom test is like, uh-oh, I haven't studied. This is going to be a problem, right? So interesting. Well, all right. This might be a kind of a tough question, but you mentioned it a couple times, and I would love for you to articulate this a bit more. But what does it mean when you say, you're developing your mental capacity or your capacity for mental toughness? What does that mean for someone who may not even have considered that?
Yep, that's a great question. Let me try to dig into this the best that I can. So we talk about courage, and we talk about fear, and then we talk about doing, the hard things to get to your goals. So no matter what you're doing in life, there always comes to a point of that stage, whether it's, you started a new job and you're presenting to someone for the first time. It's building up the courage to understand that fear is not real. So in terms of the mental capacity, you don't want to look at the end of the training block when you're just starting, because that's totally going to mess you up mentally. You just want to look at it the day that you're in, the week that you're in, 1 day, 1 week at a time, and then all of a sudden you went from swimming 20 minutes to swimming an hour and 20 minutes, and you didn't even realize it because of the way you approached it. I think a lot of people look at the end goal, no matter what the goal is, and they say to themselves, how am I going to get there? This seems impossible, unattainable. But if you just look at in smaller snippets, the buildup, all of a sudden you're there.
Man, I don't know. I don't know if there's a better way to end this podcast, from someone who just started by saying the first thing you did was set a 2.5 mile, like to get to the end of your block was 2.5 miles. And now we're literally talking to a multiple Ironman?
Multiple, 4 times.
4-time Ironman.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
I mean, not only does he tell you how to do it, but he lived it and did it.
Right.
So is there anything else you'd love to share before we let the audience go?
No, I just I appreciate the time today, and I just want to tell everyone that, that you don't need to fear what's in front of you. Just embrace it.
I love it. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You can find this on Spotify, and I think we're going to start putting them on YouTube soon.
Yep.
And we'll have Anthony's handle on the bottom so everybody can read that. Tell us what it is.
At Chef Triathlete.
At Chef Triathlete. And
Nice.
just tell us what the YouTube, the Facebook group is again.
Active and Healthy Vibes.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. And as always, if you have any guests or anybody you'd like us to talk to or topics you'd like to cover, let us know. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.